Chapter 33:54. Her figure flashed, and she retracted her aura and followed those people. She followed them in the night, but she didn't expect that she would follow them all the way to the back mountain of the sect. She raised her eyebrows slightly as she watched the devil cultivators enter the sect's back mountain. There were formations and barriers set up within the sect's territory. How were these devil cultivators able to enter the sect's back mountain as if there was no one around? Could it be that there was a spy? She followed closely and saw that these demonic cultivators had set up a barrier here. Once someone approached, the barrier would send out a warning, allowing the demonic cultivators to escape as quickly as possible. Looking at the darkness in front of her, her eyes flashed slightly. If it weren't for her cultivation, she probably wouldn't have been able to see that there was a barrier set up in the darkness. That layer of demonic power surged, and she could sense it without touching it. Her palms surged slightly, and a wave of spiritual aura surged. With a wave of her hand, the spiritual power in her palm quietly broke the barrier in front of her. Looking at the dissipated barrier and the dark demonic power that disappeared in the air, she curled her lips and walked forward. None of the demonic cultivators noticed that the barrier setup had been broken. At this time, more than 30 people were gathered together to discuss something. However, the two demonic cultivators who were originally talking stopped at the same time. They looked at each other, and one of them asked, "Did you feel it? Why do I feel that the barrier seems to have disappeared?" "You felt it too. Then it wasn't my imagination." The other demonic cultivator also said with a serious expression, "Who could it be? How could he break the barrier so soundlessly?" Hearing the two's words, the other demonic cultivators looked at each other. Someone asked, "What happened?" At this time, the two leaders calmed down and ordered, "You two, go outside and take a look. The rest of you, stay alert." "No need, I'm already here." A gentle voice came from the night. Almost at the same time that they heard this voice, the two demonic cultivators in the lead were shocked, and they quickly looked in the direction of the voice. With their cultivation, they actually didn't know that someone was quietly approaching. Moreover, from the sound of that voice, it seemed to be a woman. Was it the female venerable from the sect on Cerulean Planet? However, when that person walked out from the shadows, the expressions of those devil cultivators changed, and even their voices were trembling uncontrollably. Fengzhou. The person in front of him was dressed in red. She had a beautiful face and a cold temperament. There was a faint smile on her lips. Who else could it be but Fengzhou? Almost at the moment they saw Fengzhou, the 30 or so demonic cultivators all retreated at the same time. They knew that Xianyuanmo's and Fengzhou's strength was no longer the same as yesterday, especially when Xianyuanmo's had agreed to fight Sovereign Tongtian at Mount Yi. Now that they had encountered Fengzhou here, they really wanted to die. This was the back mountain of the Cerulean Planet sect. What was she doing here in the middle of the night instead of staying in Square City? Could it be that she found out about their plan? Fengzhou's clear eyes swept past those devil cultivators, and she chuckled. "I haven't met a devil cultivator in a long time. Tell me, what are you all doing here in the middle of the night?" Chapter 33:55. Let's go. Hearing her words, everyone's hearts trembled, especially the two devil cultivators in the lead. Almost without thinking, they threw out something from their sleeves. That thing hit the ground with a loud bang, and at the same time, black smoke filled the air. The devil cultivators took the opportunity to quickly scatter and escape. Fengzhou frowned. With a wave of her sleeve, she dispersed the smoke in front of her. At the same time, she released her pressure, and with a whoosh, a silver needle flew out from her hand, piercing the devil cultivators who were escaping in all directions. Those devil cultivators were too slow to escape, and after being pierced by the silver needle, they fell to the ground. Only the two devil cultivators in the lead escaped with their lives, and because of the loud bang, the people in the sect were alarmed. A venerable brought his disciples to the back of the mountain to investigate, and when they quickly followed the direction of the sound, they couldn't help but be startled. Ghost Doctor. The Venerable in the lead recognized Fingzhou, and then looked at the 20 devil cultivators on the ground, and hurriedly asked, Ghost Doctor, what happened? Why did devil cultivators sneak into the sect's back mountain out of the blue? Fingzhou glanced at the person who came, then glanced at the devil cultivators on the ground, and said, I just happened to pass by, and saw a few devil cultivators walking around in the sect's territory, so I followed to take a look, but I didn't expect that there were dozens of people hiding here. The rest of them bit the poison and committed suicide. These two's chins were cut off by me. You guys bring them back for interrogation. She kicked the 2 devil cultivators at her feet. Yes, thank you, Ghost Doctor. Hearing this, the Venerable quickly thanked her, and ordered the disciples behind him to bring back the 2 devil cultivators who were still alive. However, when he turned around and was about to say a few more words to Fingzhou, he saw that the red figure who was standing in front of him just now had already disappeared. Master, she left. A disciple said softly. Deal with this corpse, then report back to the sect. The Venerable said as he led them to dispose of the corpses. Then, he patrolled the surroundings before heading into the sect. Fingzhou, who was heading towards the city, stepped on the breeze and quietly entered the city. She didn't head towards the manor, but instead headed towards the slums that Wanyan Qianhua had told her about. It had only been a day. She really missed that little fellow. She wondered if he had gotten used to sleeping on his first night outside. She released her divine sense and soon found Luo Yu. She walked up to the tree he was on and saw that Ling Shuang was also there. She couldn't help but smile. Why is Ling Shuang here too? Do you miss Hao? Master. When the 2 saw her, they hurriedly bowed and greeted her. Guimo isn't back yet, so I came over to take a look, Ling Shuang said. Master, it's so late. Why aren't you resting yet? Luo Yu looked at her. He didn't expect her to come over so late. Was she worried about Hao? I just came back from a trip to the sect, so I wanted to see Hao, before going back. Fengzhou looked at the house and asked the 2 about Hao, situation. After hearing about Hao, situation, she smiled and said, Ling Shuang, come in with me to take a look. Yes. Ling Shuang responded and followed her into the house. Master, those little beggars are sleeping in the bunk over there. Hao is sleeping in this room. Ling Shuang lowered his voice as he led her in. When they arrived at the room, Fingzhou smiled when she heard the calm breathing inside. Chapter 3356. She walked forward and pulled the blanket up for Hao. Looking at his dirty little face, Fingzhou shook her head and smiled. She didn't stay for long and left after sitting by the bed for a while. When she was outside, Fingzhou looked at Ling Shuang and said, You and Luo Yu stay here tonight. I'll have someone take your place tomorrow. Yes. Ling Shuang replied. After watching her leave, he went to the tree where Luo Yu was. When Fingzhou returned to the residence, she saw Xianyuanmo sitting on the bed with his eyes closed. When he heard her coming in, he opened his eyes and looked at her. You're still awake. It's very late. Fingzhou said as she walked forward. She took off her outer clothes and walked forward wearing only her inner clothes. Just as she was about to turn over and sleep on the bed, he hugged her. You went to see Hao, Xianyuanmo hugged her and let her sit on his body. Fengzhou smiled and reached out to hug him. She leaned her head on his chest and said, I went to the sect to see Zheng. Then I went to see Hao, when I came back. Oh. For Wanyan Qianhua. Yes. She replied and said, I'm also curious. What kind of person is Zheng? After seeing him tonight, I can't deny that he's very outstanding. More outstanding than me. Xianyuanmo raised his eyebrows. His deep eyes were smiling. Hearing this, Fengzhou chuckled and leaned forward to peck his lips. In my eyes, no one can compare to you. Hearing this, Xianyuan Mo's heart moved. Like a flower blooming, a smile appeared on his cold face. He looked at her in his arms and said, "Ah, Jiu's words are very moving. I like it very much." As he spoke, he lowered his head and kissed her lips. It wasn't a light kiss, but a deep and passionate kiss. The night was dark, and the crescent moon was hidden in the clouds. In the room, two figures were entwined on the bed like a pair of mandarin ducks. On the other hand, in the Sanctum of Sages, the members of the Sanctum of Sages were already waiting in the main hall early in the morning. As they waited, they began chatting with one another. Looks like the saint will come out today. He has been in seclusion for 5 years. Yes. That's fast. 5 years have passed in the blink of an eye. I wonder how much the saint's strength has improved in 5 years. Recently, I heard that Sovereign Tong Tian and Xianyuan Mo's are going to battle at Mount E. Xianyuan Mo's strength is already at the God King level. Not bad, not bad. I heard that he is very young and is a cultivation genius rarely seen in 1,000 years. Hee, you don't know about this, do you? An old man stroked his beard and chuckled. He looked at the crowd and lowered his voice. Xianyuan Mo's is the Emperor's star, and he complements Fengzhou's Phoenix star. If not for the fact that they are destined by the heavens, do you think that anyone can be like them? They are indeed very powerful, but our holy son is not an ordinary person either. Another person said with a smile, just wait and see. The saint's strength will definitely be on par with Xianyuan Mo's. Divine King level. Is that possible? After all, Divine King level isn't something that can be achieved just by thinking about it. Back then, I heard that if the Holy Son could cut off all emotions and desires, his cultivation method would reach the great accomplishment stage. The power of that would be indescribable. Chapter 33:57. As the voice rang out, everyone's gaze turned towards the source of the voice. Mo Chen's white robe fluttered in the wind as he walked towards them. His otherworldly aura and the faint holy light that radiated from his body made him look extremely noble. If it was said that he had the temperament of a banished immortal in the past, the current him exuded an indescribable sense of nobility. It was as if looking at him for an extra second would be a blasphemy. Especially the faint layer of holy light that surrounded his body. It was as if he was bathed in holy light. He seemed to be right in front of them, but at the same time, he was out of their reach. Holy Prince! Everyone called out excitedly as they lowered their heads in unison and bowed respectfully. Mo Chen walked to the center of the hall and stood there quietly. His deep gaze swept across the crowd before him and he said, "You may all disperse. Elders, please stay behind." Yes. Everyone responded and bowed their heads respectfully as they left the hall. In a short while, only the elders and Mo Chen were left in the large hall of sages. The elders exchanged glances and stepped forward. They cupped their fists and bowed, "Congratulations to the Holy Prince for coming out of seclusion." Mo Chen glanced at them, then turned around and sat down in the center of the hall. He ordered, "Tell me about Fengzhou and the others in the past 5 years." Hearing this, the elders paused for a moment before stepping forward. They sat down on the chairs on his left and right and briefly recounted the events of the past few years. Finally, the first elder said, "The Holy Prince came out of seclusion at just the right time. Some time ago, the Cerulean Star sect sent people to ask for our help in the battle against Sovereign Tong Tian. However, because Xianyuan Mo's and Fengzhou returned, things took a turn for the better. Now, Xianyuan Mo's and Sovereign Tong Tian have agreed to battle at the peak of Mount E. There are still more than 20 days until now." At this time, the third elder said, "It's said that Xianyuan Mo's is already a God King expert, but no one knows what level he is." The second elder's eyes were fixed on Mo Chen. He looked at him, paused for a moment, and said, "Saint, before the temple master went into seclusion, he told us that after the saint comes out of the sacred tower, we have to see if the saint has severed all emotions and desires, severed all ties of love, and obtained the saint power." Saint, do you think that in other words, he wanted Yi Futian to tell them that he had already inherited the saint energy from the holy sanctum while cultivating in the holy tower for the past 5 years? When Mo Chen heard this, the corners of his lips curled into a slight smile. He looked at the elder and asked, "Elder, in your opinion, have I already severed my 7 emotions and 6 desires? Have you obtained saint energy?" The second elder hesitated. How could he know whether or not he had severed his feelings for her? Did he not have the 7 emotions and 6 desires? He only knew that the layer of saint energy around his body was stronger than before. Perhaps, he had already obtained the saint energy from the holy tower. For a moment, the few elders did not speak, but their eyes fell on Mo Chen, sizing him up. They were not sure either, but seeing that he could come out of seclusion, he should have obtained the saint energy from the holy tower. "I'm going back to rest for a while, and will leave tomorrow. You can inform the temple master that he has come out of seclusion," Mo Chen said as he stood up, one hand behind his back and the other in front of him. Without waiting for them to speak, he walked towards the back of the hall. Chapter 3358. Mo Chen slowly walked towards the back of the palace. His steps were light and leisurely. As he walked, he looked at the sky. No one knew what he was thinking, but a dark light flashed across his deep eyes. He walked towards the back of the palace and returned to the main courtyard to rest. At the same time, he prepared to leave the divine palace tomorrow to meet Fengjiu and the others. 2 days later, outside the sky of the upper world, in another region, in a palace, a man dressed in a dark golden robe with a strong waist and a bear's back was striding towards the main palace. His footsteps were like the wind. Every step he took carried a thunderous and fierce aura. He strode in. Before he saw anyone inside, he spoke first. "Wife! Wife! What's wrong? Why do you look like you're in a hurry?" A beautiful woman in luxurious clothes came out to welcome him. Although she was dressed gorgeously, she did not look well. Her face was pale. The man, Sovereign Xuanwu, strode to her side. He laughed loudly and said, "Wife, Elder Mei sent news. Our son came back with Fengjiu and the others. He's now in Four Corner City." "Ah. Our son is back. Is he okay?" The beautiful woman sobbed. Tears fell from her eyes. She could not speak. When she thought of their child, she felt as if her heart was being cut by a knife. He was her biological child, but he could not grow up by her side. He was already 5 or 6 years old, but she had not seen him even once. How tall was he now? Was he fat or thin? Did he know that there was a mother like her? "Wife, don't cry. This is good news," Sovereign Xuanwu said. He reached out and pulled her into his arms. He said, "We had no choice back then. Now that he's growing well, you don't have to worry. Husband, we were incompetent parents. We only gave birth to him, but we never raised him. Husband, do you think he won't recognize us?" The beautiful woman asked with tears falling from her eyes. She was anxious and worried. This monarch Black Tortoise was stunned. He had never thought of this problem. However, he still comforted them. "He won't. He's our son. As long as we tell him clearly that we had no choice back then, I don't think he won't recognize us." The gorgeously dressed beauty leaned into his embrace and asked again, "Husband, will they be willing to return the child to us? After all, they've raised the child for 5 or 6 years. I'm afraid their relationship is no less than ours." "Don't worry. Fengjiu and Xianyuanmos aren't ordinary people. Naturally, they're different from ordinary people. It's our son's fortune to have a pair of adoptive parents like them. Besides, if they don't want to return the child to us, they wouldn't have agreed to let Elder May deliver the message to us. Although he had never met Xianyuanmose and Fengzhou, he was no stranger to them. He had been looking forward to meeting them. The beauty fell silent for a moment, and then she thought for a moment and said, "Husband, let's go take a look first. If our son wants to follow them, let him follow. As long as he can come back to visit us often in the future, I'll be satisfied." Hearing this, Sovereign Xuanwu was stunned. He asked with a smile, "Don't you miss your son? Don't you want to bring him back and raise him by your side?" Chapter 33:59. She was worried that her son could not bear to part with Fengzhou and the others. She was also worried that if she brought him back against his wishes, he would be unhappy. After she gave birth to him, he was separated from her. Although mother and son were connected, she was also worried that her child would not grow up by their side and would not be close to them. Sovereign Black Tortoise looked at her. After a while, he said, "I heard that the old man from Tongtian and Xianyuanmose have agreed to fight at Mount E. There are only 20 days left. That old man has fought with me for so many years. I know his strength very well. I'm afraid that Xianyuanmose, who has just become a divine king, is not his match. So I was thinking of taking advantage of this time to discuss with them and see if there is anything we can help with. This way, we can repay them for raising our son. Secondly, I also want to meet Fengzhou. According to Elder May, she has medical skills that can bring the dead back to life. I only hope to have the opportunity to heal my old injuries this time. Then I'll go to the storehouse to find some good things. I'll bring them over as a greeting gift." As the beauty spoke, she frowned and looked worried. "But if both of us leave, won't others take advantage of us? Tongtian's people are not the only ones keeping an eye on us. It's okay. We'll disguise ourselves as ordinary cultivators. No one will know that we're not in the palace. Besides, I'll make the arrangements. Even if someone comes again, it's okay." He patted her hand, indicating that she did not need to worry. "Okay, then I'll go prepare first. Let's leave tomorrow." She could not wait to see her son. "Okay." Sovereign Black Tortoise smiled. To them, it did not take long to go to Four Corner City from here. It only took the time of a transportation array. While they were preparing, the people in Four Corner City were also busy with their own matters. In the main courtyard, Fengzhou and Wanyan Qianhua were playing chess while listening to Luo Yu's report on how Er's matters outside these few days. Speaking of which, I haven't visited how in the past few days. Today's weather looks pretty good. Sis, let's go together. Fengzhou looked at Wanyan Qianhua and said. Wanyan Qianhua raised her beautiful eyes to look at Fengzhou. After thinking for a moment, she said, "That's a good idea. That child has been outside for a few days. Since he has been performing well these past few days, why don't we pick him up later and bring him to a restaurant to eat something?" Fengzhou stood up when he heard this, and he said to Luo Yu, "Since Wei Feng and Guimo are guarding Hao, then you can rest at home." "Yes." Luo Yu replied, and then retreated. Fengzhou and Wanyan Qianhua walked forward and happened to bump into Guan Shilin. Fengzhou called out, "Brother, we're going to see Hao, Are you coming with us?" "That's fine too. I have nothing to do anyway," Guan Shilin said as he walked towards them. "Master, let Qin Xan and my sister go together. It'll be more convenient for Master to do whatever he wants with them." Leng Hua walked over from nearby with Leng Shuang and Qin Xan by his side. Fengzhou smiled when he saw this and said, "All right. There are so many people here. Let's take the Spirit Deer carriage." With that, he walked out with Wanyan Qianhua. "Then we'll be leaving. When we come back, we'll bring back some spiced beef to go with wine," Guan Shilin said to Leng Hua, and he walked out with a smile. Chapter 3360. On the other side, in the dilapidated house, Hao walked in with his short legs and shouted, "I'm back." He had adapted to life these few days, and there was some excitement in his tone. He thought that if his mother knew that he could be independent and could feed so many people, she would be very happy. The little beggars in the house heard Hao-er's voice and quickly ran out. They all surrounded him. "What's good to eat today? Is there meat today? Come here." Hao shouted. He came to the table at the side and took out the things from his chinkuan bag. The little beggars' eyes flashed when they saw him take out the things from the small bag and put them on the table. In particular, a few of the older beggars stared straight at Hao-er's bag. "You guys eat first. I'll go in and drink a cup of water," Hao-er said to them. After putting the food on the table, he walked in. He lived in a room by himself, so when he came in, he climbed onto the chair and poured a cup of water. When he was about to drink it, he was stunned when he smelled the water. He thought that he smelled it wrongly, so he went closer to smell it. Someone put medicine in the water. Who did it? He thought in a daze. Because his mother also taught him how to identify medicine in Dan Wang Valley, he could easily smell that the medicine in the water was muscle-weakening powder, and it was the cheapest kind. His mother helped him recuperate his body. Not to mention this, even poison couldn't poison him. However, after living outside for a few days, he knew that he had to be clear about everything. He couldn't be careless. Therefore, he planned to beat them at their own game and see who wanted to harm him. Outside, the little beggars were eating happily. The older ones looked into the room from time to time. Because of nervousness, the hands holding the food trembled slightly. It wasn't until they heard the sound of cups breaking and falling that they put down the food in their hands and ran in quickly. When they saw Hao-er lying on the ground with cold sweat on his face and a weak look on his face, the youngest girl quickly went forward to help him up. "What happened to you?" Hao-er leaned on the little girl and said, I suddenly have no strength in my body." "Ah. How can this be?" the little girl asked worriedly. "Does your body hurt?" The medicine is working," the older beggar suddenly said excitedly. Hearing this, a few of the younger ones were startled and looked at him in astonishment. "What did you say?" "Take the bag from him. There's a lot of money and a lot of treasures." As the older beggar spoke, they suddenly pushed the youngest girl away and went to snatch the inconspicuous bag tied around Hao-er's waist. "Woo!" The little girl was pushed aside and her body fell to the side. Her hand pressed on the broken cup and blood immediately flowed out. She sobbed but climbed up and squeezed forward to protect Hao-er. "Don't take his things. Don't take his things." Chapter 3361. Hao-er pursed his lips and stared coldly at the few beggars when he saw the little girl standing in front of him and using her bleeding hand to slap the bigger beggars. "Go away." One of the beggars pushed the little girl away, but she pounced on him again. At this moment, the bigger beggar shouted at the other beggars, "What are you waiting for? Hurry up and help. After we snatch his bag, we'll give you some silver." The beggars were originally a little afraid, but when they heard the last sentence, their eyes lit up. They hurriedly went forward to help pull the little girl away and pressed her firmly to the ground. Hao-er sat leaning against the corner of the table, looking weak and motionless. He watched as the beggars worked together to deal with him and even pressed the little girl to the ground. At this moment, the little guy felt a fire burning in his heart. Until he saw the chinkuan bag at his waist being snatched away by those beggars and saw them taking out the things inside in front of him, he asked, "Why are you snatching my things?" He saved them and brought back delicious food for them. Why did they still want to snatch his things? "These aren't your things. These are the things you snatched from those two people. Why should they only give their things to you?" the bigger beggar said. He looked curiously at the few Dharma treasures taken out from the Chinkuan bag and played with them excitedly. Hao looked at them fixedly. No one knew what he was thinking. After a long time, he said, "I'm too good to you." His mother had told him that one should not have the heart to harm others, but one should always be on guard against others. Before this, he felt that these beggars would not harm him because he had saved them and they were very weak. However, after today's incident, he understood some things. Some things that he would only understand after experiencing it himself. What happened today was a lesson for him. If it wasn't for his ability to distinguish between medicines, if it wasn't for the fact that he wasn't afraid of these medicines, then he could only lie here powerlessly and be robbed of everything on him, or even his life. Let's break one of his legs and one of his hands, so that he won't find trouble with us after the effects of the medicine wear off. One of the beggars said as he stared at Hao, who was leaning there. He inexplicably felt that his eyes made him fearful. Because of fear, he wanted to destroy him. He was afraid that once he recovered, they would be caught by him. Therefore, he could only cripple him while he could not move. Hearing this, the beggars all looked at each other. The smaller ones were a little scared. We don't dare. How about this? We'll leave this square city and go somewhere else. He won't be able to find us. Just in case, it's better to break his hands. This guy is too ruthless. You've forgotten that he killed people before. If he recovers, he will definitely kill us. Oh, he still has a dagger. As he said this, the bigger one was about to search his body. At this moment, the little girl who was pressed to the ground cried out, "No, don't break his arms and legs, don't. Woo. With them, were of him. Were." Chapter 33:62. Due to the strength of that kick, the little girl let out a muffled groan and spat out a trace of blood from her mouth. Seeing this, Hao's face darkened and the aura on his body became extremely cold. He stared at the beggar who came forward and reached out to grab his hand and break it. Crack! The sound of bones breaking was heard and instantly frightened all the beggars. Just as the beggar screamed, Hao's voice was heard. "Looking for the dagger. It's here." Hao's voice was heard and the inconspicuous but sharp dagger had appeared in his hand. With a flash of cold light, he directly broke the tendons in the beggar's hand. As the beggar screamed, the blade turned and directly pierced his foot, breaking the tendons in his foot. Shrill screams sounded and scared the little beggars out of their wits. However, Hao took a big step forward and blocked everyone's escape. Seeing the little beggars who were originally running towards the door retreating with pale faces, he said coldly, "Did I allow you to leave? Don't kill us. We don't want to die." The little beggars cried and begged and directly knelt down. "It's not me, it's not my idea, it's him, it's his idea, it's his idea, it's none of our business," the older beggars said as they pointed at the beggar who was lying on the ground and screaming. Not far outside, Fengjiu and Wanyan Qianhua stood on a tree and watched. They originally wanted to see what Hao was doing and did not expect to see such a scene. "What do you think your son will do?" Wanyan Qianhua asked. Fengjiu's eyes flashed and said, "Cripple one of their hands and one of their legs, just like the beggar inside. However, I don't think he will do anything to those little beggars who are in a passive position." Wanyan Qianhua shook his head and sighed softly. "This child has already been raised into a monster by all of you, yet you still let him out to train. If he trains too much, he will mature too early. Look at what he's going through now. It's not something an ordinary child would experience." Fengjiu nodded in agreement. "Yes, I didn't expect him to grow so quickly. It's only been a few days, but his ability to adapt and be independent is beyond my expectations." The two of them watched from the tree. They didn't intend to show themselves to help. They just wanted to see how he would deal with it. In that dilapidated courtyard, Hao really did as Fengjiu said. He crippled a hand and a leg of a few of the bigger beggars. As for those who were in a passive position, he did not touch them. Leave. You're not allowed to appear in Four Corner City. Otherwise, if I see you again, I won't let you off like this time. Hao warned. After watching those people rush out of the door, he went to the little girl's side and helped her up. I'll bandage you. As Hao spoke, he put away the Cosmos sack and all the things on the ground back into the sack. The little girl clearly hadn't recovered yet. She stared blankly at him. You didn't use the medicine. Yes. Hao replied with a straight face. After applying medicine for her, he used a strip of cloth to bandage her hand. When he sensed that someone was coming, he looked up. When he saw that familiar figure, his eyes couldn't help but light up. He quickly stood up and pounced on the figure that was slowly walking over. Chapter 33-63. Hao ran forward. Just as he was about to pounce forward, he remembered that he was dirty and couldn't help but stop. Fengjiu bent down and was about to catch him, but he retreated. She couldn't help but smile. What's wrong? You haven't seen your mother for a few days. You don't want your mother to carry you. Hao's little face reddened. Mother, Hao is dirty. When they appeared, Wei Feng and Guo, who were hiding in the shadows, had already been ordered to take the little beggars who had fainted from the pain of having their tendons cut off. In the large courtyard, there was only Fengjiu's group and the little girl who walked out with her short legs and looked at them blankly. Those people were so beautiful, and the clothes they wore were so nice. However, why did the little beggar call the woman in red his mother? Fengjiu squatted down with a smile and pulled Hao in front of her. She smiled and said, "It's fine. You'll be fine after you go back and take a bath and change your clothes." But mother, it hasn't even been 10 days. He also wanted to go home and see his mother, but his mother said that she had to adapt to the outside world for 10 days. Hao's performance has been very good these past few days. Then there's no need for 10 days. Mother specially came to take Hao to eat. She rubbed his head and smiled at the little girl behind him. If you like that little girl, bring her home. At this time, the little girl carefully walked forward and tugged at Hao's tattered sleeve. Little beggar, why do you call her mother? Do you want to go with them? Then what about me? She's my mother. Hao thought for a moment and said, follow me. Yes. The little girl happily responded. She then looked at the beauty in red who was looking at her with a smile and asked in a small voice, why do you have a mother? Fengjiu smiled and stood up. She held Hao's hand and said, let's go. She brought him out and said, this is mother's sworn sister, Wanyan Qianhua. You can call her Aunt Hua. Aunt Hua. Hao called and looked at her. Good girl, Wanyan Qianhua replied with a smile. He said to the little girl, come with us. Thus, they brought the two children to the restaurant. On the other side of the restaurant, Ruoda restaurant was closed at this time. Inside the restaurant, the waiters were busy, and Ling Shuang and Qin Xian were waiting behind. When they saw Fengjiu and Wanyan Qianhua returning with Hao and a little girl, the two went up to greet them. Master. Ling Shuang, go to the clothing store and buy a few sets of clothes for the little girl. Qin Xian, have the waiter prepare some water for them to bathe in. Fengjiu instructed and brought the two children to the courtyard of the restaurant. Yes. The two of them replied and immediately turned to leave. The shopkeeper personally brought the two children to bathe, and Fengjiu and Wanyan Qianhua sat in the courtyard. Wanyan Qianhua poured a glass of wine and said, are you going to leave the little girl with Hao? Yes, she looks like a good girl, but she still needs to be trained. Fengjiu said and took a sip of wine. Not long after, Guan Shilin came in from outside. You're back. I just went out to buy some things. Come, try the spiced beef I brought back. Guan Shilin said and took out a portion for them. He looked around and asked, where's Hao? Did you bring him back? Chapter 33-64. Yes, we have to prepare in advance. Guan Shilin nodded and said, now that the news has spread, people from all over the world will probably come to Mount Yi to watch the battle between Moze and Sovereign Tongtian in a month's time. Although Moze is now at the Divine King level, we don't know if Sovereign Tongtian has any ultimate moves, so we have to be careful. I know, Fengjiu replied. She took a sip of wine from her glass. In the backyard, Ling Shuang put on the newly bought clothes for the little girl and said to her, let's go. As soon as she finished speaking, she walked out. Outside, Hao, who had already bathed and changed into clean clothes, was waiting at the door. When he saw the door open and an adult and a child walk out, he walked forward and called out, Aunt Shuang. Your mother and the others are in front, let's go. Ling Shuang said and held his hand as they walked forward. Behind them, the little girl touched her new clothes lovingly. It was the first time she had worn such clean and beautiful new clothes, so she was very happy. When she heard the sound, she looked up and saw the woman in black holding the hand of a child who was the same age as her. The child didn't turn around, so she couldn't see his face. However, after thinking about it, she still followed behind them. Her eyes darted around from time to time as she looked at the small figure with curiosity and surprise, trying to guess his identity. Mother, uncle, Aunt Hua. Hao followed Ling Shuang in and jogged to Fengjiu's side, calling out to the three of them one by one. Fengjiu reached out and picked him up. You look good after you've washed up. She carried him to a chair and sat him down. Mother ordered a lot of dishes, take a look and see what you like to eat. Thank you, Mother. Hao said and picked up his chopsticks to eat. Fengjiu looked at the little girl standing at the side. She smiled and asked, what's your name? I don't have a name. The little girl lowered her head and said. Fengjiu thought about it and said, I can find a family to adopt you and let you grow up safely. You can also stay and be my son's servant. Which one do you want to choose? Hearing this, the little girl was stunned. She looked at Hao, who was eating and asked, he's a little beggar. Why did he look different? Only his voice was the same. He's not a little beggar, he's my son. Fengjiu said and looked at the little girl. What do I do as a servant? Is it to play with him? She asked in confusion. Maidservant, in the future, someone will naturally tell you what you want to do. Right now, you only need to tell me which one you want to choose. I'll stay and follow him. The little girl looked at Hao. Seeing this, Fengjiu said, if you stay, from this moment onwards, you will be called master, and your life will no longer be yours. Are you still willing to stay? Yes. The little girl nodded. Fengjiu said, all right. From today on, you'll be called Little Five. He glanced at Ling Shuang. Ling Shuang walked forward and said to the little girl, come with me. The little girl looked at Hao, and saw that he didn't speak or look at her. She lowered her head and followed Ling Shuang downstairs. Chapter 33-65. Fengjiu smiled. Keep her for now. We'll see. She's just a little girl anyway. How big of a deal was that? If this little girl was obedient and kept her place, then she could stay. If she was prone to betrayal in the future, then she could be erased. In her opinion, she had given the opportunity. Whether she could seize it or resist all the temptations in the future would depend on the situation. After all, not everyone was as loyal as Ling Shuang and Ling Hua. She said these words in front of Hao because she wanted him to know that he should be wary of others. However, she believed that after experiencing life these past few days, he should have seen through a lot of human affairs. Hao lowered his head and ate. He didn't speak but listened carefully. He picked up a piece of meat for Fengjiu and said, "Mother, eat." "Good boy, Hao, eat more." Fengjiu smiled and patted his head. Then, he also picked up his chopsticks. Guan Shilin laughed loudly. Come. Let's eat." After eating, take Hao out for a walk. Go shopping and buy some small things. You haven't taken him around since you came back. That's true. Fengjiu looked at Hao and said, Hao how about we go shopping with you after eating? Okay. Hao answered. Because he thought that they would accompany him to play in the city, he sped up. When they saw this, they shook their heads and laughed. They chatted while drinking wine. On the first floor, the little girl looked at the food on the table. There was meat, vegetables, and snacks. She was dazzled and happy. Are these all for me? She looked at Ling Shuang and asked. Yes, eat. Ling Shuang said. He turned and walked upstairs. Seeing him leave, the little girl immediately reached out to pick up something to eat. When the waiter in the corner saw this, he quickly walked out. Don't use your hands. Use chopsticks. Oh. The little girl answered. She picked up her chopsticks and ate. Her eyes were bright as she asked, Who are they? Is their family rich? When the waiter heard this, he sneered, Eat your food. This little girl's luck was good, but whether she could bear it or not, that was hard to say. Not long after, Wei Feng and Guimo also came to the restaurant. They approached Fengjiu and said, Master, it's already taken care of. Fengjiu responded and waved his hand, indicating for them to leave. Mother, how are those people? Hao asked. He knew that Wei Feng and the others had gone to deal with those little beggars that he'd crippled. Actually, he'd only crippled an arm and a leg, and he could already be considered to have been merciful. Out of Foursquare City. Fengjiu looked at Hao and said, Many times, being lenient will bring endless trouble to yourself. When it's time to make a decision, you have to be decisive. You can't hesitate, understand? Yes. Hao responded. After he finished eating the food in his bowl, he said, Mother, there's a place to row boats in the west of the city. Mother, I want to row a boat there. Okay, Mother will take you there. Fengjiu smiled and took Hao out with them. On the other hand, Ling Shuang brought the little girl back to the estate. Chapter 3366. Mother, why do they keep looking at us? Hao asked in a low voice. He saw that the people behind them were looking at them from time to time. Some of them were even walking behind them. They were looking at them while whispering to them. Fengjiu smiled slightly and said, You have to get used to this kind of gaze. When you grow up, you will still encounter such things. You just have to be yourself in the face of their curiosity and sizing you up. You don't have to care about their sizing up and discussion. Oh. Hao responded and looked away after glancing at them. Hao, take this. Guan Shilin bought a stick of candied haws from somewhere and handed it over. Thank you, uncle. Hao thanked him and reached out to take it. He took a bite. It was sour and sweet. It was very delicious. Is it good? Guan Shilin asked with a smile. It's good. Hao responded with a big smile on his face. They shopped on the streets and occasionally entered some rare shops to buy some more expensive things. When they arrived at the west of the city, it was already evening. Qi Naxian helped them book a lantern boat and let them all board. She sat at the bow and took out her zither to liven things up. Hao couldn't stay in the cabin and went to the bow. He saw Chin Axian playing the zither and the boatman rowing the boat at the stern. His mother and uncle were chatting in the cabin. Therefore, he lay down on the deck and reached out to play with the lake water in front of him. It's so cold. The water is so clear. I wonder if there are fish in it. Hao said as he looked into the water curiously. He played with it with his little hands and could only faintly use his fingertips to pick up a few drops of water. Little master, you can't lie down and play with the water like this. It's very dangerous. Chin Axian stopped playing the zither and looked at Hao and said softly. I won't fall in. Hao said and played with the water again. He asked, will there be fish in the lake? There will definitely be fish in the lake. Chin Axian put away the zither and walked to Hao side to guard him in case he fell into the lake. It would be great if I could go into the lake to catch fish. It must be very fun. After all, he was a 6-year-old child, and his nature was naturally playful. Chin Axian smiled and was about to speak. Suddenly, her expression changed. She reached out and picked up Hao who was lying on the bedboard. Then, she quickly stepped aside. It was also at this moment that a hand suddenly shot out from the originally calm surface of the lake. That hand directly reached out from the water to grab Hao If she hadn't reacted quickly and carried Hao away, Hao would probably have been pulled into the lake by that hand. The sound of splashing water broke the calm surface of the lake. Almost at that moment, more than 20 figures flew out from the bottom of the lake. They pointed their swords at the ship and quickly attacked. If one paid close attention, one would notice that those people looked like they were attacking Fengjiu and the others, but in fact, they were targeting Hao Fengjiu and the others flew out from the cabin. Seeing the surrounding black-clothed people, her eyes turned cold. She emitted a suppressive force from her body with her as the center. The powerful force instantly shocked those black-clothed people, making them unable to move. Chapter 3367. Roar. Ah! Hao cried out in shock when he saw the huge mouth of the beast and the sharp teeth of the beast swaying in front of his eyes. Just as the beast was about to bite him, a ray of light suddenly flashed out of Hao's body and a wolf howl sounded. In the next moment, the snow-white silver wolf that suddenly appeared tore off a piece of the beast's flesh. Roar! Awoo! Fengjiu and the others came to Chin Axian's side to protect Hao At the same time, their eyes flashed when they saw the snow-white silver wolf that rushed out. After calming down for a while, Fengjiu's spiritual power surged. As the flames burned, a whirlpool suddenly appeared on the calm lake. The whirlpool was so big that it pulled the surrounding lake water up. Just as the boat was about to fall in, Fengjiu and the others stepped on the wind and flew up. They even grabbed the old man rowing the boat and brought him to the shore. Just as they flew out of the whirlpool, the boat on the lake was also swallowed up and disappeared into the whirlpool. Looking at the disappearing black figures, Fengjiu's eyes flashed. He pursed his lips and no one knew what he was thinking. Guan Shilin looked at this scene and frowned. They were clearly here just now. In the blink of an eye, they disappeared. He looked at Fengjiu and asked, "What do you think? Right now, who was it that was attacking them?" Moreover, they actually used the power of the lake water to activate the teleportation array. After the sneak attack failed, they didn't continue fighting and quickly left. That well-trained method and the intention to attack Hao Could it be that these people were sent by the Sovereign of Sky reaching? Now that both sides had agreed to battle at Mount Shao, they actually wanted to capture Hao to threaten them. Chin Axian brought Hao back to the shore. Fengjiu and the others also landed one after another. He came to them and asked, "Are you okay?" "I'm fine," Chin Axian said and looked at Hao Mother, those people wanted to capture me. As Hao spoke, he couldn't help but shudder. Just now, that ferocious beast suddenly opened its big mouth, revealing sharp teeth, and pounced on him. That kind of fear of being devoured in the next moment made his heart tremble violently. Fengjiu rubbed his head and didn't say anything. Instead, he looked at the silver wolf that was pouncing on the lake water. He looked at her with excitement and joy and then looked at Hao. Go back to the space first. Fengjiu said and glanced at the wolf, telling it to go back to the space to avoid causing too much commotion. That. She walked forward and released her divine sense to scan the lake before her, saying, someone has set up a teleportation array here, and its aura is very strong. I think it might really be Sovereign Tongtian. Right now, apart from Sovereign Tongtian, no one else would have any ideas about how. However, Sovereign Tongtian was a sovereign after all. How could he still think of using despicable means to capture Hao, after the battle on the summit? This was too despicable. It seems that he doesn't have the confidence to defeat Moze. Otherwise, why would he think of capturing Hao? Guan Shilin said and looked at Fengjiu. Keep a close eye on Hao during this period. Don't let anything happen to him. It would be really troublesome if Hao fell into the hands of the Sovereign of Sky Reaching. Chapter 3368. When the group returned to the residence, Fengjiu took Hao back to his room to rest. Seeing that his face was still pale, she asked, "Are you afraid?" After all, he was only a 6-year-old child. Even an adult would not be able to calm down when he saw the ferocious beast pouncing on him and biting him. Yes. Hao replied. He held her hand with both hands and said softly, "Mother, am I very useless?" He did not want to be afraid, but when he thought of the previous scene, he could not help but feel afraid. It's okay. Hao is already very powerful. She patted his hand and coaxed softly, "Be good. You'll be fine after sleeping." Hao listened to her and closed his eyes. However, as soon as he closed his eyes, he thought of the ferocious beast pouncing on him and opened his eyes again in fear. Mother, Hao doesn't dare to sleep. Seeing that he was frightened, Fengjiu's eyes flashed with worry. She comforted him softly and said, "It's okay. Mother will chat with you. Let's let Qin Axian come in and play the zither. We can chat while listening to the zither, okay?" "Yes, Mother, stay with me. Don't go." He held her hand tightly, afraid that she would leave. "Okay, Mother won't go." Fengjiu said softly and called out, "Qin Axian." Qin Axian walked in from outside and called out, "Master." She looked at Hao on the bed. "Qin Axian, play a song." Fengjiu looked at her but did not say what song to play. "Yes." Qin Axian responded and walked to the side to sit down. She took out the zither from her space and played a calming lullaby. The pleasant sound of the zither rang in the room. The sound of the zither was gentle and seemed to brush past Hao's fearful heart. He gradually relaxed and blinked his eyes to look at Fengjiu sitting by the bed. Fengjiu accompanied him and told him the funny stories when she pretended to be a beggar. As time went by, he gradually fell asleep under Qin Axian's hypnosis. She couldn't help but feel sorry for the little fellow who was still holding her hand tightly even though he was asleep. This child was really frightened today. In the past, he had brought him to the forest for training, but he had never experienced such a situation where he almost died in the mouth of a beast. Today's scene seemed to have frightened him quite a bit. "Okay, he's asleep." Fengjiu whispered to Qin Axian, indicating that she didn't need to play anymore. Fengjiu carefully pulled her hand out of his grasp and covered him with the quilt. Then, she walked out with light footsteps. Qin followed behind her and left the room. When they arrived at the courtyard, Fengjiu glanced at the room and said, "Qin Axian, you stay here and look after Hao. Yes. Qi Naxian responded and watched her and Ling Shuang turn and walk out. Only then did she go back to the room to guard. In the hall, Guan Shilin and the others were all there. At this time, when they saw Fingzhou come in, they asked, "How is Hao?" Just now, the boy didn't look right. He seemed to be frightened. He was a little frightened, but he's fine. He's asleep. Fingzhou said and sat down in the main seat. He said to Du Fan and the others, investigate who those people are. In addition, strengthen the patrol in the mansion and pay more attention to the city. Yes. Chapter 3369. Aren't you planning to leave for Mount Ping in a few days? Are you bringing Hao with you? Wanyan Qianhua, who was sitting at the side, asked her. Yes, I'll be more at ease with him by my side, Fingzhou said. Seeing this, Wanyan Qianhua said, I think I can help you look after Hao on this trip. If you bring him to the sect, he should be very safe. The sect of the Cerulean planet. Fingzhou shook his head, it's not safe there either. There are some demonic cultivators hiding there. I met them last time, but I don't know if they've been caught. Is that so? Wanyan Qianhua was slightly surprised. She turned her beautiful eyes and asked, You've only been back for a few days. When did you go to the sect? Why didn't I know about it? Hearing this, Fingzhou smiled embarrassedly, I didn't go for long. I went for a while and left some instructions for CK and the others. Then I came back. Oh. Wanyan Qianhua nodded, but her eyes were still on Fingzhou. Obviously, she didn't believe what she said. After giving instructions to everyone in the hall, Fingzhou and Wanyan Qianhua walked to the backyard. The two chatted as they walked. After they sat down in the pavilion, Wanyan Qianhua rested her chin on her hand and looked at her with her beautiful eyes, asking, You went to the sect to look for Junju Shang. I knew I couldn't hide it from you. Fingzhou smiled, I've been curious about what kind of person Junju Shang is for a long time. I never had the chance to meet him, so after you got drunk that night, I went to the sect to see what kind of man could make you fall in love with him, so that she looked at her with a smile and said, I did see him. I wanted to take a look and leave, but who knew that he would discover me? However, I don't think his condition is too good. Wanyan Qianhua, who had been listening quietly, saw her stop after she finished speaking. He couldn't help but look up at her. The situation isn't good. What do you mean? He has an inner demon, so he must have been tormented by it. When I arrived, it was already very late, but he was still awake. He was sitting there reading a book, but he didn't turn the page for a long time. Clearly, he was distracted. That's right, I left a corner of my clothes hanging down at that time. He probably mistook me for you when he didn't see me. Fengzhou smiled. When she thought of Junju Shang's expression at that time, she knew that he wanted to know. At least, after meeting him, she didn't think that he wasn't attracted to her sister. Wanyan Qianhua listened in a daze. No one knew what he was thinking. Sister, I don't think he has no feelings for you. From my experience, he should have fallen in love with you, but he doesn't know it. Fengzhou sighed softly. She looked at her in a daze and said, The person you fell in love with is not an ordinary person. He is the leader of the Carefree sect, a cultivator who is many years older than you. There are too many obstacles between the two of you. It won't be easy to overcome them. I don't have feelings for him anymore. Wanyan Qianhua said with a cold face. He turned his gaze elsewhere. Hearing this, Fengzhou smiled and agreed with him. Yes, you don't have feelings for him. He has fallen in love with you, but he doesn't know how to say it. You should just ignore him and let him be troubled by his inner demon. Who asked him to make you sad? Isn't that right? Chapter 3370. Looking at her expression, Fengjiu patted her hand and stood up. Sister, I'm going to find Zay. You can sit here for a while. With that, she left first. It was better to let them deal with their relationship problems themselves. Even if she wanted to help, she had no way of doing it. Especially when her sister said that she didn't love him anymore, but she couldn't let go of him in her heart. She was also someone who had been through this. However, her relationship with Zay had always been stable and trusting. There had never been any doubt, betrayal, or sadness. Therefore, compared to them, the two of them were really very happy. Moreover, they were preparing to get married. After they got married, they would have their own children and a family that belonged to them. Thinking of this, her footsteps became lighter. She walked all the way to the back of the mountain and arrived at the cave residence. Seeing Mo sitting cross-legged inside, she sat down beside him. Why are you here? Xianyuan Mo's opened his eyes and looked at her. Recently, he had been quietly cultivating here. He wasn't cultivating, but meditating. Fengjiu reached out and hugged his arm. She leaned her head on his shoulder and said, Today, I took Hao out to play. We encountered an ambush and Hao was frightened. Xianyuan Mo's frowned slightly. Who was it? Do you have any clues? With their current reputation, someone actually dared to ambush them. It could be imagined that the other party had a motive. We don't know if it was Sovereign Tongtian's people because those people were targeting Hao. She sighed softly. He was frightened and couldn't sleep when he came back. I asked Qin Xan to play a hypnotic calming song to make him fall asleep. I heard from Elder Mei that he has already informed his biological parents. After seeing his parents, if he is willing, let him go back. Perhaps Feng and the others will be better taken care of. Moreover, with Sovereign Xuanwu's current strength and power, he should be able to protect him. Hearing this, Fengjiu was silent for a moment. Then she said, We'll see about this when the time comes. What kind of people his biological parents are, we still have to meet them to know. Xianyuan Mo's lips curled into a faint smile. He reached out and hugged her, letting her lean into his embrace. The two of them sat together quietly, feeling each other's presence. When the sky darkened, the two of them left the back of the mountain together. When they walked to the front of their courtyard, Lenghua came up to them. Yama God, Master. Lenghua bowed to the two of them and then stepped forward. Young Master Mo Qin is here. He is sitting in the courtyard. Hearing this, Xianyuan Mo's expression changed slightly. His deep gaze looked towards the courtyard in front of him. He pursed his lips and didn't say anything. Fengjiu, on the other hand, was delighted. When did they arrive? Why didn't you call us? As she spoke, she held Xianyuan Mo's hand and walked forward. Lenghua slowed his steps. He beckoned a servant girl over and gave her instructions. Then he walked inside. He didn't enter the courtyard, but stood outside. Mo Chen, who was drinking tea in the courtyard, heard Fengjiu's voice before he even saw her. When he heard her voice, his hand paused. A dark light flashed through his deep eyes. When he looked up again, that light had already disappeared. Chapter 3371. Mo Chen, it's really been a long time. How have you been? Fengjiu stepped forward with a smile. As he stepped forward, he loosened his grip on Xianyuan Mo's hand. Xianyuan Mo lowered his gaze and looked at his empty hand. For some reason, he felt a little gloomy. He pursed his lips and glanced at Mo Chen, who was dressed in spotless white robes. Then, he stepped forward and sat down beside Fengjiu. It's been a few years since we last met, but you're still as elegant as ever. As Xianyuan Mo spoke, he looked at Nalan Machin with a deep gaze. Compared to 5 years ago, Xianyuan Machin now had an extra sense of stillness. He could clearly feel that Nalan Mo was smiling, but it felt very distant. especially the faint light emitted from his body, which was very conspicuous. It made him look like a luminous body in the night. Hearing their words, Emo-chan smiled warmly. He looked at them and said, "When I came here, I went to the Divine Temple on my master's orders and took over the position of Divine Temple Son. I've been cultivating in the sacred tower for the past few years. I only came out recently." In a few words, he briefly recounted what had happened in the past few years. He looked at the two of them and said, "It seems that you've had a lot of opportunities in the past few years. In 5 years, you've already become experts at the Divine King level." Fengzhou looked at him and smiled. "We've only been able to achieve this speed because of the help of pills. But you're different. You've taken one step at a time and now you're at the peak of the high god level. You're only one step away from becoming a Divine King." He smiled and did not say much. He only said, "I heard that you've arranged a battle with Sovereign Tong Tian on Mount E." "Yes, that's right." Xianyuan Mose replied. "Are you confident in a one-on-one battle?" Emo-chan asked. "It shouldn't be a problem." Xianyuan Mose said. "That's good." Emo-chan nodded. He glanced at Fengzhou and said to Xianyuan Mose, "You're not alone. You have to think about Zhou. If you don't have the confidence to fight, you should avoid it." Hearing his words, Fengzhou chuckled. "Don't worry. Zay knows what he's doing, and I have confidence in him." Emo-chan looked at her gently and asked, "How have you been these past few years?" When Xianyuan Mose heard this, he raised his eyebrows and said, "She's doing well. You don't have to worry about her. By the way, after the Battle of Mount Shao, we'll prepare to go back and get married. You must come to our wedding then." Fengzhou glanced at Xianyuan Mose, who was rushing to speak, and smiled at Emo-chan. "I've been doing well these past few years. We're going to get married, so you must prepare a congratulatory gift. You must come to our wedding as well." Hearing their words, Emo-chan smiled and asked, "Are you going back to the Phoenix Dynasty to get married?" "Yes, we're getting married from the Phoenix Dynasty." Xianyuan Mose said. "I'll definitely be there. I'll also prepare a generous gift for you." Emo-chan said gently and looked at Fengzhou. "Zhou, I think you'll be happy when you marry Mose." "Yes, we'll be happy." Fengzhou held Xianyuan Mose's hand and looked at Xianyuan Mose with a blissful smile. They looked at each other and smiled. Fengzhou looked at Emo-chan and said sincerely, "Emo-chan, whoever marries you in the future will also be happy." Chapter 3372. Lenghua ordered the servants to serve the food and wine, and let the three of them have a small gathering in the courtyard. That night, he listened to them chatting and laughing until late into the night. "I can't drink anymore. I'm going back to rest. You guys should sleep early too." Emo-chan stood up, his footsteps slightly unsteady. "Lenghua, take Emo-chan to rest." Xianyuan Mose called out to Lenghua outside. "Yes." Lenghua walked in and said to Emo-chan, "Young Master Emo-chan, this way please." "Thank you." He nodded to Lenghua, then followed him out. Watching Emo-chan walk away, his figure swaying slightly, Fengzhou said, "He drank a little too much tonight. It seems like he has something on his mind." Xianyuan Mose reached out and hugged her waist, saying, "Don't worry. He'll be fine. He'll be fine after a good night's sleep." His deep eyes watched the white figure gradually disappear into the distance. When it disappeared from his sight, he held Fengzhou and walked to the back room, saying, "You smell of alcohol. Why don't we take a bath?" "Yes, it'll be easier to sleep after a bath," Fengzhou said, then called out, "Ling Shuang, get someone to prepare water for a bath." "Yes." Outside, Ling Shuang came out of nowhere. After responding, she left. Compared to the two smiling people here, on the other side, Emo-chan entered the room, took off his coat, and lay down on the bed. As soon as he lay down on the bed, his whole body relaxed. He thought about what had happened tonight. He thought about the happiness in Fengzhou's eyes when she looked at Xianyuanmo's. He smiled and closed his eyes, murmuring, as long as you're happy, as long as you're happy. The next morning, Wanyan Qianhua was waiting for Fengzhou in the front courtyard. When she saw her come out, she said, Xiao Zhou, I'm going back. I came to tell you. Back to the sect. Fengzhou looked at her and asked. Yes, there are some things I need to take care of, she said, looking into the distance. Hearing this, Fengzhou smiled, saying, Okay, then I won't keep you any longer. In a few days, we'll go to Sun Mountain. After the Battle of Sun Mountain, we'll go back to the Phoenix Dynasty to get married. You must come then. Hearing her words, Wanyan Qianhua revealed a charming smile. She reached out to hold her hand and said, Don't worry. I'll definitely go, and I'll definitely bring you a big gift. Fengzhou pursed her lips and smiled, saying, Then I'll thank you first, sister. She paused and looked at her. After hesitating for a while, she said, Sister, although I feel that this is your Zhenjia Shang's relationship and I can't help much, I want to give you a piece of advice. Follow your heart when it comes to relationships. Most of the time, no one is right or wrong. As long as you follow your heart and don't have any regrets, it will be fine. Hearing this, Wanyan Qianhua was silent for a while. Finally, she nodded, saying, Don't worry. I know. The two talked for a while, then Fengzhou saw her out. After watching her leave, she turned around and went back to Hao's courtyard to see how he was today. Master. Qi Naxian saw her come in and stood up to greet her. Chapter 3373. He has been sleeping since last night, Qi Naxian said as she looked at Hao, who was lying on the bed. Go and rest. Fengzhou said as he walked up to the bed and sat down. Katomi bowed and left the room, gently closing the door behind her. Fengzhou sat by the bed and looked at Hao, who was sleeping soundly. Her heart softened. He had grown up from a small ball in her arms like a kitten. She had seen him grow up bit by bit over the years. The little guy was so good-looking. When he grew up in the future, he would definitely be a handsome man. She couldn't help but chuckle when she thought of the many women who adored this little guy in the future. Mother. Hao opened his eyes in a daze. He rubbed his eyes and looked at his mother who was sitting by the bed and smiling. You're awake. Are you hungry? She asked with a smile. She took him out of the quilt and helped him put on the clothes at the head of the bed. Yes, yes. Hao nodded and looked at her with sleepy eyes, letting his mother help him put on his clothes. Go and wash up. I'll wait for you outside. Fengzhou rubbed his head, carried him out of bed, and motioned for him to wash up by himself. Hao answered and walked out. Fengzhou went outside to wait while instructing the maidservants who were guarding outside to prepare breakfast. Not long after, Hao came out and held Fengzhou's hand. Let's go. We'll eat in the main courtyard. Your father and uncle are there. Fengzhou said and led him to the main courtyard. In the main courtyard, the maidservants had already served porridge. They usually ate simple and light breakfast. Xianyuanmo's and Guan Shilin sat and chatted while waiting for Fengzhou and the others to come. You can go back with Zhu and the others first. I still have to prepare some betrothal gifts, so I might be back later. I'll have to trouble you with the wedding, Xianyuanmo said to Guan Shilin. Hearing this, Guan Shilin laughed heartily. You don't have to worry. I'll arrange your marriage personally. When we get back, I'll ask my adoptive father and the others to choose an auspicious date for you. Thank you. The corners of Xianyuanmo's lips curled up. He was in a good mood. Morning. Mo Chen's voice drifted over. The two people in the courtyard looked towards him and saw that he was still dressed in white, exuding the aura of an immortal. Guan Shilin stood up and said with a smile, "Have a seat. I just arrived too. Let's have breakfast together." Aju hasn't woken up yet. Mo Chen asked as he looked at Xianyuan Mo's. She's up. She went to Hao Er's place. She should be here soon, Xianyuan Mo said and motioned for him to sit down. The maidservant once again set a set of chopsticks and bowls. Guan Shilin also sat down and said with a smile, "We were just talking about their marriage." Those who have been married know that marriage is a major event in life. There are many things that need to be done. Marriage is a major event. Naturally, there are many things that need to be prepared. However, with your help, I think it will be easier for them. Mo Chen said with a smile. He looked at Xianyuan Mo's and said, "It hasn't been easy for you to come this far. Now that you're married, you should cherish each other more. Especially you should treat Aju better." Xianyuan Mo's glanced at him and said, "She's my wife. She's the woman I love. Naturally, I'll pamper her and love her." Chapter 3374. You're all here. Feng Jiu held Hao Er's hand and walked in. When she saw the three men sitting and talking in the courtyard, she smiled and said to Hao Er, "Remember to greet him. Call the one in white Uncle Nalan." "Okay." Hao Er responded and looked at the man in white. He blinked and whispered to Fengjiu, "Mother, this uncle is very good-looking." His father was also good-looking, but not that kind of good-looking. This uncle in white gave him the feeling of an immortal. After hearing his words, he showed a gentle smile and looked even better. Although Hao Er's voice was lowered, who present couldn't not hear his words. For a moment, Guan Shilin laughed loudly. Mo Chen's smile also deepened. Xianyuan Mo's glanced at Mo Chen as if he couldn't see what was good about him. Fengjiu chuckled and scratched Hao Er's nose. "Hao Er will be very good-looking when he grows up. Father, Uncle Nalan." Hao Er stepped forward, bowed to them respectfully, and greeted them one by one. Mo Chen took out a jade pendant from the space and handed it to him, saying, "This is a meeting gift for you." Seeing this, Hao Er raised his head and glanced at his mother, asking silently, "Take it." Fengjiu smiled and gestured. "Thank you, Uncle Nalan." Since his mother had spoken, he stepped forward and took it. Then he thanked her and played with the jade pendant in his hand. "Come, mother will help you tie it around your waist." Fengjiu took the jade pendant from his hand and tied it around his waist. Looking at the jade pendant hanging down with only a tassel missing, she smiled and said, "Later, let Qin Xian tie a tassel for you. You'll look even better." "Okay." Hao Er responded and sat next to her. "Eat first. The porridge is getting cold." Xianyuan Mo scooped a bowl of porridge for Fengjiu and Hao Er and gave them some snacks to eat. When they were almost done eating, outside the mansion, a spirit beast carriage stopped in front of the door. A man and a woman got out of the carriage and a man in black came forward and knocked on the door. Elder May was guarding the door. When he heard someone knocking on the door, he opened it. Just as he was about to ask who it was, he saw the two people standing in front of the spirit beast carriage. His expression changed and he hurried over. "Master, madam, why are you here?" Elder May asked while looking around, saying, Come in." The black tortoise monarch supported his wife as they walked inside. The 8 black-clothed men behind them also walked in. In the mansion, Ling Hua and Du Fan were talking when they saw Elder May greet a group of people. The man in the lead looked extraordinary. After he came in, his sharp eyes looked around. Seeing this, the two of them looked at each other and walked forward. Du Fan smiled and asked, "Elder May, these two are?" His gaze fell on the man and woman. "These two are the little master's biological parents," Elder May said. He looked at Leng Hua and said, "Leng Hua, miss, and the others should be in the main courtyard. You go and report." Leng Hua replied before withdrawing his gaze, and then he turned around and left. Chapter 3375. The Black Tortoise Monarch nodded and led his wife inside. He secretly observed the layout of the mansion, as well as the people in the open and in the dark. With his cultivation base, it was easy for him to know that other than the people in the open, there were also quite a number of people hiding in the dark. Looking at the two men just now, they had an extraordinary bearing. If it wasn't for Old May's simple introduction, he wouldn't have been able to tell that they were just servants of the mansion. In the hall, the servants served tea and retreated. Du Fan greeted them in the hall. In the main courtyard behind, Feng Nine and the others, who had already asked the servants to remove the food on the table, were chatting when they saw Leng Hua come in. "Master," Leng Hua called. Feng Zhou glanced at him. "The Black Tortoise Monarch and his wife are here." "They are in the front hall," Leng Hua said and glanced at Hao. Hearing this, Feng Zhou instinctively looked at Hao. For a moment, he was silent. No one knew what he was thinking. Xianyuan Mo stood up and said, "Let's go take a look. Let Hao meet them." "Okay," Feng Zhou responded. He held Hao hand and said to Guan Shilin and Imo Chen, "Have some tea first. Let's go meet the guests." "Go ahead." The two nodded. Seeing Xianyuan Mo's and Feng Zhou take Hao out of the courtyard, Imo Chen looked at Guan Shilin and asked, "Why is the Black Tortoise Monarch here? When did they meet?" Guan Shilin smiled and said, "They have never met before. However, it is said that the Black Tortoise Monarch is Hao's biological father. I think they are here to take Hao back." As he spoke, he shook his head and sighed softly. But Hao grew up by Little Nine's side and has never met his biological parents. Now that he's going back with them, I reckon he won't be willing to part with Little Nine and Mo's. Hearing Guan Shilin's words, Mo Chin was a little surprised. He did not expect the child's biological father to be the Black Tortoise Monarch. But Feng Zhou, was she willing to let them take back the child she had raised for 5 or 6 years? "Mo Chen, I have known you for many years, but I have never seen you with any woman. Have you not met anyone you like all these years?" Guan Shilin asked with a smile. Looking at the seemingly otherworldly immortal in front of him, he was a little curious. In all these years, he had never seen him treat any woman differently, except for his sister, Feng Zhou. However, Mo Chen and Xiao Jiu had known each other for many years. In the past, it did not feel like he had any romantic feelings for her, so he should not have any improper thoughts about Xiao Jiu. After all, he had watched Mo's and Xiao Jiu go through all the trials and hardships together. A person like him would naturally not get involved in other people's relationships, nor would he fall in love with the other party after knowing that she already had someone else in her heart. However, he had an inexplicable strange feeling that he was treating Xiao Jiu differently from before. Hearing Guan Shilin's question, Mo Chen smiled gently. "I am a person who has cut off all 7 emotions and 6 desires. These things do not belong to me." "Cut off all 7 emotions and 6 desires?" Guan Shilin was stunned. What is going on? Chapter 3376. Guan Shilin stared at him in a daze. Mo Chen was clearly smiling, but there was a sense of loneliness in that smile. He was clearly sitting in front of him, but he gave off an ethereal and distant feeling. In life, there were 7 emotions and 6 desires: joy, anger, sorrow, and joy. If there were no emotions, then what was the meaning of life? "You once said that it was to protect Xiaojiu." Guan Shilin looked at him, his heart heavy because of his words. Mo Chen took a sip of tea and said gently, "Yes, she is the star of the phoenix, and I am her guardian star. It is my responsibility to protect her." As he spoke, he smiled again. "This is a responsibility that I was born with. Even if the star of the phoenix was not Fengzhou, I would still do the same. Guan Shilin was silent and did not speak. How could he not know what he was talking about? He said that even if the star of the phoenix was not Xiaozhou, he would still do the same. Haha, that was impossible. He knew that Imochen treated Xiaozhou differently. If the star of the phoenix was not Xiaozhou, why would he accept the position of the son of the saint to protect her? Enter the sacred tower to sever all emotions and desires to inherit the sacred power. In the end, everything he did was for Xiaozhou. Thinking of this, he sighed softly in his heart. Imochen was outstanding. She was outstanding in every aspect. Moreover, she wholeheartedly cared for little Nine, wholeheartedly protecting her without asking for anything in return. If not for the fact that Xiaozhou and Mose were already in love, it would be hard to say who Xiaozhou's heart would belong to. At the same time, Xianyuan Mose and Fengzhou, who were leading Hao forward, each held one of Hao's hands. The little guy did not know that the guests in front of him were his biological parents, so his steps were light, and his face was overflowing with smiles. At this moment, Fengzhou looked at Hao and stopped in his tracks. He said softly, Hao, do you know who your mother is bringing you to see? Gashed, Hao said, looking up at her. Fengzhou smiled and reached out to caress his tender little face. They're your biological parents. They're here. They're in the front hall. Mother, bring Hao to meet them. Hearing this, the smile on Hao's face disappeared. His little face turned cold, and even his little mouth was tightly pursed. He looked unhappy. Fengzhou squatted down and held his little face in his hands. What's wrong? Are you unhappy? Mother, I don't want to see them. I don't want to go back with them. I don't want to leave father and mother. It's enough for Hao to have you too. I don't want anyone else to be Hao's father and mother. He pouted, his eyes reddened, and his face was full of grievance. When Xianyuan Mose heard this, he could not help but sigh in his heart. This child had been raised by his side for 5 to 6 years, and he was indeed very considerate. However, even if they wanted to keep him, his biological parents would not be willing to let him stay by their side. Hao, be good. Let's go meet them first. Mother won't let them take you away just like that. Fengzhou comforted him and kissed him on the cheek. Only then did she hold his hand and look at Xianyuan Mose. Let's go. Let's meet them first, Xianyuan Mose said. He also held his hand and led them to the front hall. Chapter 3377. A man and a woman with an extraordinary bearing walked in. The man was wearing a black robe, looking calm and luxurious. The woman was wearing a red robe, looking wanton and flamboyant. Between the two of them, there was a small figure wearing a small white robe. The fitting clothes set off the small figure's exquisiteness and unparalleled exquisiteness. The little person's exquisite face and familiar eyes made her eyes redden. Tears welled up in her eyes, blurring her vision. This was her son, she was so emotional that her body trembled slightly. However, when she saw her son's cold and distant gaze, her heart clenched tightly in pain. Wife. Monarch Xuanwu stood up and walked to her side. He held her hand and patted it gently to comfort her. He also looked forward and calmly sized up the black-robed Xianyuan Mose and red-robed Fengzhou. These two were indeed like dragons and phoenixes. Their auras and appearances were peerless. Even if he stood in front of them, his aura would not be as dazzling as the two in front of him. This kind of kingly aura was extraordinary. It was no wonder that they were recognized as the Emperor Star and the Phoenix Star. I've long heard of your names. Today, I finally get to meet you. Nice to meet you, nice to meet you. Monarch Xuanwu brought his wife forward and bowed to the two of them. As a monarch, bowing to the two of them could be said to be extremely important and respectful. This was not only because of their strength, but also because they had saved his son and raised him. Therefore, the respect he had for them was full. "Yama Lord, Ghost Doctor," Monarch Xuanwu's wife called out and bowed slightly. Seeing this, Xianyuan Mose and Fengzhou looked at each other and said, "Please sit." Fengzhou gestured for them to sit. Only then did he sit down with Xianyuan Mose. Hao stood beside Fengzhou, his small hands tightly holding Fengzhou's hand. He only glanced at the two people when he came in, then lowered his eyes and didn't look at them again. In his opinion, they were here to take him away. He didn't like them. Even if his mother said that they were his biological parents, in his eyes, they were like strangers. "Yama Lord, Ghost Doctor, let me introduce myself first. My title is Black Tortoise Sovereign, my surname is Dongfang, and my given name is Che. This is my wife, Sima Lanxin. We came here not only for our son, but also because we heard that you and Sovereign Tongtian were going to fight at Mount Shao. We wanted to help you." Monarch Xuanwu looked at them and said, "I've been fighting against Monarch Tongtian for many years. I know him well. If it's a one-on-one fight, he'll definitely use some tricks." Xianyuan Mose and Fengzhou looked at each other and didn't say anything. When they saw that Sima Lanxin's eyes were fixed on Hao, Fengzhou said, "There's no rush. We can talk about it later." She looked at Hao, and brought him forward. She said softly, "Hao, come and greet them." Hao raised his head and looked at the two people who were looking at him with hope. He pursed his lips and lowered his head, unwilling to greet them. Seeing this, Sima Lanxin's tears fell from her eyes. She wiped her tears and said with a choked voice, "Child, I am your mother." Chapter 3378. Hearing this, Sima Lanxin's face turned pale. She looked at the child's angry expression and the way he hugged Fengzhou tightly. She felt her heart clench tightly as if someone was cutting it with a knife. It was so painful that she found it difficult to breathe. "How, you can't do this." Fengzhou sighed softly in his heart. He looked at the pale Sima Lanxin and said apologetically, "Don't take it to heart. He just can't accept it for a while." I know, Sima Lanxin replied. She wiped her tears with a handkerchief and said, "I didn't come to take him away. I just wanted to see if he was doing well." Hao pursed his lips and looked at her with a straight face. "I want to be with my father and mother. I don't want to go with you. We are not others. We are your biological parents." The Black Tortoise monarch saw that his son did not recognize them and sighed in his heart. They did not raise him by their side. So what if he was their biological child? Wasn't he still alienated? Xianyuan Mose glanced at the couple and then looked at Hao. He saw the little guy hugging Fengzhou tightly as if he was afraid of being taken away. He said, "Hao, they specially came to see you. No matter what, you should greet them." Hao pursed his lips when he heard his father's words. He glanced at him, then at the two people, and finally at his mother. "They are your biological parents. You should greet them," Fengzhou said softly and stroked his head. Seeing this, Hao walked away from Fengzhou's side and walked towards the Black Tortoise monarch and his wife. He knelt down in front of them. Hao greets father and mother. He didn't want to call them father and mother. His parents were here. His parents were one of a kind. The Black Tortoise monarch couple saw the little person kneeling in front of them and could not help but feel moved. They quickly helped him up. Good son. Ha 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 ha, good. Sovereign Black Tortoise was overjoyed and laughed loudly. Hao was held in the arms of the two. His small body was also stiff. He stood there stiffly, not knowing what to do. Fengzhou shook her head inwardly when she saw him like that. She said to the two of them, it's rare for the two of you to come here. Why don't you stay here for a few days? This way, they could get to know how, better. If that's the case, then we'll have to trouble you. The two of them did not refuse. After all, they knew that such an opportunity was hard to come by. If they wanted their children to accept them, they had to spend time together. They chatted in the hall for a while. Hao was originally in Sima Lanshin's arms, but in the end, she couldn't resist Hao's struggle and let him go back to Fengzhou's arms. Fengzhou asked Elder Mei to take them to rest. Then, he and Xianyuan brought Hao back to the main courtyard. On the way, Fengzhou asked, Hao, what do you think of them? Nothing much. Hao pursed his lips and looked at her worriedly. Mother, don't chase Hao away, okay? Hao wants to follow father and mother. Chapter 3379. Really? Hao raised his head and asked. Really? Fengzhou answered with a smile. Hearing this, the little guy secretly planned in his heart. Since his mother said so, as long as he didn't agree to go back with them, he could always stay by his parents' side. At noon, Sima Lanshin came to the main courtyard to find Fengzhou and Hao. She wanted to spend more time with him and let him gradually get familiar with her. Xianyuan, the black tortoise monarch, Guan Shilin, and the others were in the main hall talking about the sovereign Tongtian. On the other side, in the Cerulean sect, Junju Shang, who was sitting cross-legged in cultivation, suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood and fell to the ground, unconscious. Without anyone to take care of him, no one knew that he had fainted. In the evening, a middle-aged man from the Carefree sect came to the house where Junju Shang was staying. He knocked on the door and called out, Sect Master. For a long time, no one answered. He called out twice more, but still no one answered. He pushed open the door and walked in. He saw Junju Shang lying on the ground in his white clothes. He was vomiting blood on the ground. Some of the blood had even stained his white clothes. It was a ghastly sight. He couldn't help but cry out in alarm. Sect Master. He quickly ran forward to help him up and gave him a simple check. His heart couldn't help but sink. After helping him lie down on the bed, he quickly rushed out. After returning, Wanyan Qianhua wandered around the sect. In this sect, she didn't take a step into Junju Shang's house. Today, she walked around the other places and saw the cultivators who gathered in the sect. Those cultivators said that they wanted to fight the sovereign Tongtian. However, since the sovereign Tongtian and Xianyuan agreed to fight on the peak, these cultivators didn't leave. Instead, they said that they would find a time to leave together and go to the foot of the peak. As for those people, she didn't pay much attention to them. After seeing them, she forgot about them. Seeing that it was getting late, she jumped down from the tree and walked towards the main peak. However, after walking for some distance, she heard some disciples in the sect discussing. Hearing those voices, she could not help but stop in her tracks. Just now, the elder of the Xiaoyao sect hurriedly went to the Medicine Mountain to find some alchemists. He said that their patriarch vomited blood and fainted. Ah! Was this for real? Junju Shang, the leader of the Carefree sect. He is an expert whose strength is comparable to our sect master. Why would he suddenly vomit blood and faint? I don't know. The pharmacists of Medicine Peak were all invited over, but they all walked out shaking their heads. They seemed to be saying that it was quite serious. I just saw the sect master and a few supremacies go over to take a look. Ah! What should he do? The patriarch of the Xiaoyao sect vomited blood and fainted in our sect. If anything happens to him, it will be our responsibility. Listening to the disciples' discussion, Wanyan Qianhua was stunned and couldn't take a step forward. The voices from earlier echoed in her mind. Junju Shang vomited blood and fainted. And it seems very serious. How could this be? Chapter 3380. Her mind was blank as she walked forward. When she came back to her senses, she had already arrived at the courtyard where Jun Ju Shang lived. She looked at the pharmacists who were shaking their heads as they walked out. She pulled one of them and asked, "How is he? Is it serious?" Seeing that it was Wan Yan Qianhua, the pharmacist who was being pulled said, "The situation is not very good. He has lost consciousness. Can't you cure him? Is he injured? Or is he possessed by his inner demons?" asked Wan Yan Qianhua. She was clenching her fists. "He's possessed by his inner demons. We don't know." The old pharmacist shook his head and walked away. He murmured, "I wouldn't have thought that someone like the patriarch of the Xiaoyao sect would be trapped by his inner demons one day. Nobody can avoid such a thing." Wan Yan Qianhua stood there in a daze. Inner demons? She couldn't help but remember what Fengjiu had told her. He had said that he was possessed by his inner demons and that no medicine was effective. She walked in with heavy steps. When she came to the room, she saw the sect leader talking to a few supremacies. She walked forward and looked at them. "Miss Wan Yan, you're here." The middle-aged man who was guarding the bed saw her and hastily greeted her. He knew that the heart demon of the sect leader was none other than Miss Wan Yan. Now that the heart demon had formed, blindly suppressing it would only make it stronger. In a situation like the sect leaders, no matter what kind of divine pills or miraculous medicine they used, it was useless. He was suffering from a heart disease, and a heart disease could only be cured by heart medicine. Wan Yan Qianhua didn't reply. She just looked at Jun Ju Shang, who was lying on the bed. His face was pale and his breathing was weak. His face was as white as a sheet of paper. He didn't move at all. It was as if he was sleeping forever. She couldn't help but feel nervous. She thought that he had let go. However, when she saw him like this, she realized that he had always been in her heart. She had never let go. She had been deceiving herself all this time. The sect master and the other supremes were surprised to see Wan Yan Qianhua crying in front of the bed. They couldn't help but look at each other. They gestured with their hands and the few of them left the room. Even the middle-aged man was called out by them. When they were outside, the sect master looked at the middle-aged man and asked, "What's going on between her and your sect master?" His intuition told him that there was something between them that they didn't know. He couldn't help but think of the time when Wan Yan Qianhua was injured and stayed in the carefree sect to recuperate for a long time. After that, she didn't return to the sect but went out to gain experience. Now, looking at these two people, it seemed that something was wrong. The middle-aged man sighed. "Miss Wan Yan was the cause of my clan master's inner demon." Hearing this, the supreme headmaster and the others' expressions changed. Their eyes flashed with surprise. The inner demon was caused by Wan Yan Qianhua. Everyone present was smart. As soon as he said this, almost everyone understood what was going on. Alas! Since ancient times, love is the most difficult. I didn't expect your sect master to be the same. Forget it. Since this matter was caused by her, she can only solve it. The sect master shook his head and left with his hands behind his back. Chapter 3381. Hearing this, the middle-aged man's eyes brightened. "All right, I will let Miss Wan Yan know." He sent them off with a smile before returning to his room. When he entered the room, he saw Wan Yan Qianhua sitting by the bed without saying anything. Her beautiful eyes were fixed on his sovereign. Seeing this, he sighed softly and said, "Miss Wan Yan, you don't know, but the sovereign hasn't been doing well these past few years." As he spoke, he looked at her, paying attention to the expression on her face. When he saw her expression change slightly, he continued, "This heart demon has been with him for 5 years. The last time I met you on the road, I wanted to tell you, but the sect leader didn't let me. In fact, even if the sect leader didn't admit it, I can see that the sect leader has you in his heart. It's because he has you, but he doesn't dare to love you, that the heart demon has grown and trapped him. Miss Wan Yen, the sovereign hasn't had a good night's sleep these past few years. That year, when you left under the cover of night, the sovereign was worried about you and followed you out. That year, he sent you to the family at the foot of the mountain and even watched over you for an entire night. He waited for your fever to subside before returning to the sect. Because he didn't want you to know, he repeatedly instructed that family not to reveal anything to you. As the middle-aged man spoke, he told her all these things that she didn't know. That year, when he found out that she was recuperating at the foot of the mountain, after she left, he went to ask around and found out. However, the sovereign never mentioned these things. When Wan Yen Qianhua heard this, she suddenly stood up and turned to leave. Her expression was even colder than before. Miss Wan Yen, where are you going? The middle-aged man saw her stand up and leave and couldn't help but follow her out. Wan Yen Qianhua stopped in her tracks and coldly glanced at him. Do I need to report to you where I'm going? No, it's like this. Just now, your sect master asked you to stay here and help take care of. Before he could finish his words, he saw that the red-clothed Wan Yen Qianhua had already left with a cold face. Seeing her turn and leave without hesitation, the middle-aged man was stunned for a moment. He didn't know what he had said wrong. Why did she suddenly turn hostile? Everything was fine just a moment ago. Wan Yen Qianhua, who had turned to leave, was now filled with anger. Everything that the middle-aged man said reminded her of that miserable and sad night 5 years ago. He was the one who pushed her away with his own hands. He was the one who used such hurtful words to chase her away. Why should she care about his life and death now? The raging flames of anger burned away her rationality, causing her heart to undulate and her breathing to become slightly chaotic. She only felt that if she did not vent this anger, she really did not know what she would do. Therefore, she did not return to the main peak. Instead, she went directly to the ferocious beast forest behind the sect. She went there alone to fight and vent the anger in her heart. She was angry at herself. She was angry at herself for caring about his life and death. She was angry at herself for not letting him go after so many years. She was angry at herself for being so indecisive. Fengzhou didn't know what was going on in the sect, but CK and Mu Axan were here. Because this matter had something to do with Wan Yen Qianhua, the two of them discussed it and reported the situation of the sect leader to Fengzhou. Chapter 3382. Look at you. Are you trying to hit on someone again? Xianyuan Mose walked over and saw her eyes darting around with a glint in them. There was an inexplicable smile on her lips, and he knew that she was thinking about something again. Fengzhou reached out and grabbed him when she saw him. She smiled and said, "Of course not. I just thought of a way to break the strange relationship between my sister and Junju Shang." "Oh. What do you mean?" Xianyuan Mose looked at her with amusement and asked. "You see, both of their hearts belong to each other, but they refuse to admit it. My sister seems to have been hurt by Junju Shang. And Junju Shang is the kind of person who would rather suffer than lose face. He's putting on airs as the patriarch of the sect. He doesn't seem to have any distracting thoughts. It'll be very difficult for either of them to break this situation." She became more and more excited as she spoke. Her eyes narrowed into crescents. She said with a smile, "So, we have to use extreme methods in extreme times. Let my sister force herself on him. It'll be best if she can get pregnant in one night." Hearing her bold idea, Xianyuan Mose raised his eyebrows and said, "Force herself on him. And get pregnant in one night." He looked at her with a pair of deep black eyes with an indescribable expression. "What do you think? What do you think of my idea?" she asked with a smile. "If you use it on me, I'll definitely clap my hands and cheer." Xian Yuanmo's thought to himself. When he thought about what she said about forcing herself on him, he couldn't help but clear his throat. Are you sure that the two of them love each other? He cleared his throat and cleared his throat. Of course. I'm never wrong about people. Also, CK and the others just sent me a message. They said that Junju Shang's heart demon acted up and he fainted. After my sister went to see him, she ran into the ferocious beast's forest. Fengjiu said inside, say, my sister is beautiful, strong, and has a good family background. She has a lot of young men who admire her, but she fell in love with Junju Shang. Don't you think this is fate? Was it tribulation? Although Junju Shang has a good appearance, he's not young anymore. It's no wonder that he doesn't dare to admit his love. Hearing her words, Xian Yuanmo chuckled and reached out to hold her in his arms. He said, if you love someone, you have to say it. Age is not a problem. It's just that he doesn't dare to look at it. With his cultivation and mentality, he might not care about what the world thinks of him. It's just that he hasn't reached a point where he can go without hesitation. He paused for a moment before continuing. In other words, his love for Wanyan Qianhua hasn't reached the depths of his bones, to the point where he's completely irrational and reckless. That's why I should help them. Fengjiu said with a smile. She withdrew from his embrace and said, actions speak louder than words. I'm going to refine some pills now. I'll send them to her later. Seeing that she was about to do it, Xian Yuanmo stopped her and asked seriously, how do you know that Wanyan Qianhua will agree to your idea? You're forcing her to force herself on him and make her pregnant after one night. This isn't something an ordinary woman can accept. Also, do you know the consequences she'll have to bear if she does this? Chapter 3383. She looked at him and said, do you think my sister is a woman who cares about what others think of her? She has always lived as she pleases and has never cared about what others think of her. Plus, her temperament is not something an ordinary woman can compare to. Since she has already fallen deeply in love with someone, she will not be moved by another man in this lifetime. If it were another woman, they would not be able to bear the consequences. But she can. She smiled and said, plus, right now, she is angry. She is angry that Junju Shang broke her heart back then. Now, if I tell her this idea, based on my understanding of her, she will definitely agree. She pursed her lips and smiled. I don't believe that after one night, Junju Shang will still be able to maintain his demeanor as the sword master of Xiaoyao and treat this night as a dream. Just wait and see. When that time comes, he will be the one chasing after my sister. After hearing what she had to say, Xian Yuanmo felt strange. You've even considered this? Of course. She smiled and raised her chin. I am the ghost doctor, Fengjiu. How could I not calculate this? Seeing her proud look, he remembered the scene when he first met her. He couldn't help but chuckle and ask, then if I didn't chase after you, and you were the one who was moved by me first, would you also force yourself on me? Hearing this, her clear eyes flashed with a smile. She looked at him and asked teasingly, you seem to have a special liking for forcing yourself on me. If that's the case, I can help you. Yes, when we help you, I will let you do whatever you want. Xian Yuanmo said with a smile. Hearing this, Fengjiu pursed her lips and smiled. Okay, I will give you a surprise when the time comes. She chuckled and said, I will go and prepare the dan first. My brother is with Hao Air and the Black Tortoise Monarch in the garden. If you don't want to go, then go find Mo Chin for a drink. Go. Xian Yuanmo gestured for her to go about her business. When he saw her leave the courtyard and walk towards the pill courtyard, he called for people to prepare food and wine to be sent to Mo Chen's courtyard. Then, he clasped his hands behind his back and went to Mo Chen's courtyard to drink with him. 2 days later, in the vicious beast forest, Wanyan Qianhua was resting under a tree. Her red clothes were torn by the branches, and her body was stained with some dust. She had hunted many vicious beasts in the past 2 days, and there was not a single injury on her body. With her cultivation, it was already impossible for the ferocious beasts in the ferocious beast forest to harm her. After venting her anger, she gradually calmed down. She sat under the tree and raised her head to look at the leaves above, as well as the azure sky that was faintly discernible through the leaves. Perhaps she had suddenly sensed something. With a thought, she took out a flashing jade card from the space. When the voice from the jade card entered her ears, her beautiful eyes couldn't help but flicker. Her originally listless appearance gradually returned to its normal state. "Force myself on him," she muttered. Her expression was a little surprised, and her beautiful eyes flashed. Her heart was faintly moved. If she forced herself on Junju Shang, what would the consequences be? If she could really get pregnant in one night, then what would she have to face? For a moment, she thought in her heart. Wanyan Qianhua had never cared about the opinions of the world. She only needed to know what she wanted. Chapter 3384. Immediately, she leapt up from the ground. Taking a deep breath, she headed toward Sifang City. The next day, Wanyan Qianhua arrived at the Feng Manor. Entering the manor, she headed straight for the main courtyard. When she arrived, she saw a few unfamiliar faces. Glancing around, she recalled what Fengzhou had said to her a few days ago. Thinking about it, those two should be the Black Tortoise Monarch and his wife. "Sis, you've come." When Fengzhou saw her, he smiled and excused himself from the people in the courtyard. He then walked towards Wanyan Qianhua and reached out to hold her hand as they walked out. "Those are Hao Er's birth parents?" Wanyan Qianhua asked and glanced at her. "You're letting them interact like this? Aren't you afraid that Hao Er will leave with them?" Fengzhou smiled. "Since they are Hao Er's birth parents and have come from so far away, how can I not let them interact for a while? Besides, with their strength and cultivation and Hao Er's blood relationship, I feel that it's not bad for Hao Er to have a few more people to take care of him. Only you are magnanimous. You've raised a son for a few years, yet you're not afraid of him being snatched away." As Wanyan Qianhua spoke, the two walked to a pavilion in the garden and sat down. She said, "I came after hearing your news. Do you really have that kind of medicine?" Fengzhou pursed his lips and smiled. "Sis, I am the ghost doctor. What kind of medicine can't I make? Moreover, this kind of medicine that can make a woman pregnant in one night is not difficult to make. As for you, have you really decided?" Wanyan Qianhua glanced at her. "If I hadn't decided, do you think I would have come?" Hearing this, Fengzhou smiled somewhat mischievously. "Sis, you really dare to force yourself on him? Will you?" As she spoke, she took out a book from her space and handed it over. Smiling, she said, "Here, this is what I prepared for you. Take it back and take a look." Wanyan Qianhua glanced at her. After taking the book and flipping it open, her face turned slightly red. She angrily said, "I'm not a little girl who doesn't know anything. How could I use this kind of book?" As she spoke, she pushed the book back and said, "You, on the other hand, will be getting married soon. You can read this book." Fengzhou smiled and took out 2 pills from her space. She opened the 2 bottles and put them on the table. She said, "Sister, look, there are 2 pills here. One is cyan and the other is red. Give the cyan one to Junju Shang and the red one to Junju Shang. You have to take the red one before the battle. Do you understand?" But Wanyan Qianhua hesitated. Her beautiful face flushed red and she was conflicted. "He's still unconscious. You can't let me do that kind of thing to an unconscious person, right?" Hearing this, Fengzhou smiled. "What's so difficult about that? Why don't we just wake him up?" "But can he wake up in his current condition?" Wanyan Qianhua's eyes flashed. "Didn't you see? He's lying there weakly. His face is as white as paper. In his current condition, if I really do something to him, can he withstand it? Chapter 3385. Hearing this, even Wan Yen Chenhua's face became hot. She glared at her and put away the 2 pills on the table. She asked, "You haven't told me how to wake him up." Feng Jiu smiled slyly, leaned forward, and whispered a few words in her ear. Finally, she said, "That's all." Hearing her words, Wan Yen Qianhua paused and asked, "Can I really get pregnant after one night?" She couldn't help but look forward to it. She even wanted to see how Zheng Shang's perfect mask would crack. "Don't worry. With the pills I've refined, I guarantee that you'll get pregnant after one night," she said with a smile, then asked, "But, sister, after you've done this, you're not planning to stay in that sect, are you? How is that possible?" Wan Yen Qianhua looked at her. "After this, I'll leave immediately. I've decided to go back to the Wan Yen clan in the lower realms. I'll call 13th uncle to go back with me. Also, aren't you going back to get married? I want to attend your wedding banquet as well." She had already made up her mind. Once the matter was done, she would quickly leave, so as to avoid being caught by Jun Ju Shang. She couldn't guarantee that he would still be able to act like an immortal after she forced herself on him. Who knew what that man would be like when he went crazy? It was better for her to leave as soon as possible. "That's good too. We won't be staying here for long. After we deal with Sovereign Tongtian, we'll go back to get married and stay for a while." Feng Jiu smiled at her. "When you feel bored in the Wanyan clan, you can go to the Phoenix Dynasty. Although there's no dynasty system there, it's still a good place. Also, you can stay in the Peach Blossom Cove for a while." I know." Wanyan Qianhua replied. She stood up. "Then I'll leave first. When you fight with Sovereign Tongtian, you must be careful." "We will." Feng Jiu also stood up and personally sent her out. After she left, he didn't rush back to the main courtyard. Instead, he sat in the garden for a while and took out some wine from his space to drink. "Why are you sitting here drinking by yourself? Your sister left." Mo Chen walked over from not far away. He had originally wanted to return to the courtyard to rest, but when he saw her, he walked towards the pavilion. Feng Jiu heard the sound and looked back. Seeing that it was him, he smiled. "My sister just left. She had something to do and didn't stay long." As she spoke, she took out a cup from her space and poured a cup for him. "Try it." Mo Chen sat down across from her. He took a sip of the wine and said warmly, "This spirit wine is not bad. It's from my personal collection." She smiled and winked. "I wouldn't take it out for an ordinary person to drink." Looking at her smiling face and her eyes full of slyness, Mo Chen's smile deepened. "It seems that I'm not an ordinary person in your heart. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to drink this spirit wine from your personal collection. Our years of friendship aren't for nothing." She smiled. "We're preparing to go back to the lower realm. Are you staying here or going back home to take a look?" Chapter 3386. Feng Jiu nodded. "That's true. You came here with us and you've been here for 5 years. It's time to go back and take a look." Mo Chen drank a glass of wine and put it down. He watched as she poured another glass for him. At this moment, his heart skipped a beat. He looked at her and asked gently, "Ah Jiu, I've always wanted to ask you a question." Feng Jiu raised her eyebrows and looked at him. "What question?" "Ask away." He picked up the wine glass and swirled it gently. His eyes met hers and he asked, "How did you fall in love with Moze?" Hearing this, Feng Jiu was stunned, and then she smiled. That smile came from the bottom of her heart, and tenderness and sweetness appeared in her eyes. "Him. I don't know how I fell in love with him. I only know that since we first met, we didn't get along well, and we caused quite a few things. Fengjiu smiled and took a sip of wine. Actually, when I confessed to him and asked him how I felt, I didn't give him a definite answer. Instead, I made a promise of 10 years. But Duchy shook her head and smiled. Although it was a promise of 10 years, we hadn't been apart for 10 years. When we met again, everything went smoothly and we naturally got together. Emo-chan took a sip of wine and lowered his eyes. Not long after, he looked up at her and asked gently, "Is he the only man you've ever loved?" Upon hearing his voice, Fengjiu turned to look at him. She couldn't help but be stunned by what she saw. The smile in her clear eyes gradually faded, and the smile on her face also faded a little. She looked into his deep eyes, as if she could see the person hidden in the depths of her heart through those eyes, and remember that dust-covered memory. Was it her imagination? She suddenly felt that Emo-chan's eyes were very similar to that person's. When she regained her senses and wanted to take a closer look, she saw that his deep eyes were calm. There was only a hint of curiosity. She couldn't help but smile and shake her head. What was wrong with her? How could he let his imagination run wild? Fengjiu picked up the wine glass and downed it in one gulp. She poured another glass and downed it. Only then did she lower her gaze and slowly say, "In this world, Sei is the only man I've ever loved. However, in my previous life, I once deeply loved a man, but he died later on." As she said this, Fengjiu picked up the wine glass and downed it again. When Emo-chan heard this, he lowered his gaze and said, "I can only say that you and that person are not fated to be together. He is not the one you are destined to be with. However, he can be considered lucky to have made you fall in love with him." Fengjiu didn't say anything. He just poured another glass of wine and drank it. Because he recalled the events of his previous life, he recalled that person's gaze before he died. His heart was still somewhat shaken. Although so many years had passed and she had already let go of this feeling and accepted a new one, he was still someone she had once loved. No matter how much time had passed, there would still be traces left in her heart. When she picked up the wine glass again, Emo-chan's slender hand stopped her. He took the wine glass from her hand and put it down. She looked at him quietly. Emo-chan smiled helplessly and said, "You've already drunk a lot. You can't just drink like this just because it's a precious wine, right? That's too wasteful." Chapter 3387. Seeing her smile, he stood up and warmly said, "You drank quite a bit on an empty stomach. It's easy for your head to get high. I'll have Lang Hua send you back to sleep." After saying this, he didn't wait for her to say anything before walking out of the pavilion. Lang Hua was in the front yard. Because he knew they were drinking, he didn't walk too close. Only when he saw Emo-chan walk out first did he walk over to greet him. "Young Master Emo-chan." Lang Hua bowed. "Lang Hua, your master drank quite a bit on an empty stomach. She's at the pavilion. Go send her back. Let her sleep for a while." As Emo-chan spoke, he turned around to look. He saw Fengjiu in the pavilion holding her face with one hand and swirling a wine cup with the other. He looked away and indicated for Lang Hua to go forward. Lang Hua looked towards the pavilion and nodded, "Okay, I understand." He watched him leave before walking towards the pavilion. "Master." Lang Hua called out. Looking at her, he asked, "Master, do you want to go back and rest?" Everything was fine. How had she gotten drunk? Fengjiu supported herself on the table and stood up. She smiled and said, "I only drank a few cups. I'm not drunk." "All right, there's no need for you to send me back. Go do what you need to do. I'll go back on my own." As she spoke, she waved her hand and walked out of the pavilion. Seeing this, Lang Hua followed from a distance. He didn't go forward. "That's right. Master didn't seem drunk. But, what were they talking about? Thinking of Mo Chen's expression when he left, although he was smiling, he still felt a strange sense of loneliness. On the other side, after Wanyan Qianhua left the Feng Manor, she headed towards the sect. When she returned to the sect, it was almost evening. She first returned to the main peak to take a bath. After relaxing for a while, she went to Junju Shang's courtyard when the sky turned dark. The moment she entered the courtyard, the middle-aged man who was guarding the courtyard welcomed her with a pleasantly surprised expression. "Young Miss Wanyan. Why are you here?" The middle-aged man was pleasantly surprised. He thought that she would not come back after leaving in anger. He did not expect her to come back. She must be worried about their sect leader. Wanyan Qianhua glanced at him and asked, "Is he still asleep?" "Sect leader hasn't woken up yet. He's been sleeping." "Miss Wanyan, why don't you go in and take a look?" the middle-aged man said as he hurriedly invited her in. Wanyan Qianhua paused for a moment before entering the room. She saw that Junju Shang was still quietly lying on the bed as if he had fallen asleep. Seeing this, Wanyan Qianhua stepped forward and took out a bottle of nutrient solution from the space. Then she said to the middle-aged man, "Help me lift him up." "All right." The middle-aged man stepped forward and stared at the transparent bottle in her hand. He hesitated for a moment and couldn't help but ask, "Miss Wanyan, what is that?" Was he going to feed it to the sect leader? "What does it do?" Wanyan Qianhua glanced at him and said, "This is a nutrient solution made by Fingzhou. It can nourish the body's muscles. Your sect leader is currently unconscious and hasn't eaten anything. His body won't be able to take it for too long." Chapter 3388. Wanyan Qianhui glanced at him and said, "You can go out. I'll stay here." Hearing this, the middle-aged man was startled. He glanced at her and smiled. "All right, I'll be outside. Call me if you need anything." With that, he turned around and walked out, closing the door behind him. After Wanyan Qianhua watched him leave, she carefully fed him the spiritual liquid in her hand. Looking at the unconscious Junju Shang, her eyes flashed. After feeding him the spiritual liquid in her hand, she helped him lie down. She sat beside him and stared at him, as if she was thinking about something. After about the time it took for a stick of incense to burn, she walked out and said to the middle-aged man outside, "I'll come back tomorrow." "Oh, all right. Rest early, Miss Wanyan." After watching her leave, he walked into the room. Seeing that the sect master's complexion was better than before and his breathing was more stable, he couldn't help but feel relieved. For the next 2 days, Wanyan Qianhua would go over at night and feed Junju Shang the spiritual liquid. On the night of the 3rd day, when she went over, the middle-aged man in the courtyard welcomed her happily. "Miss Wanyan, our sect master is awake." Hearing this, Wanyan Qianhua took a step forward and her eyes flashed. He really woke up. This time, sect master woke up so quickly because of Miss Wanyan. "Miss Wanyan, thank you so much." "Oh right, sect master is waiting for Miss Wanyan inside." "Miss Wanyan, please go in." The middle-aged man's face was full of smiles. After bowing, he left the courtyard. Wanyan Qianhua stood in the courtyard for a long time and didn't go in. In the room, Junju Shang, who heard her coming, didn't see her for a long time. He paused for a moment and walked out. "Why don't you come in?" He stood at the door and looked at her in the courtyard. His voice was as indifferent as before, but there was an unknown dark light in his eyes. Wanyan Qianhua looked up and saw him standing by the door. He was wearing an inner robe and his outer robe was simply draped over his body. His black hair was draped over his back. His handsome face was much better than a few days ago. At this moment, his eyes were fixed on her. She didn't know what she thought of, but she pursed her lips and walked forward, go back and lie down as soon as you wake up. I don't have so much spiritual liquid to feed you. Junju Shang watched her walk past him and into the room. His expression softened a little. He turned and walked into the room and sat at the table. Thank you for these past few days. As he spoke, his gaze fell on her face. Looking at her taut face and indifferent appearance, his gaze could not help but darken a little. Wanyan Qianhua met his gaze indifferently. His voice was calm as he said, I am only repaying the kindness of the past. Hearing this, Junju Shang fell silent. Wanyan Qianhua also fell silent. The two of them didn't say anything and sat there awkwardly. After a long time, Wanyan Qianhua said, Since you're awake, you don't need to take the spiritual liquid. If there's nothing else, I'll go back first. She stood up and didn't plan to stay for long. Wait. Junju Shang called out and stood up as well. Since you said you want to repay me, then stay in the courtyard and take care of me these days. Chapter 3389. Junju Shang clenched his fist and coughed softly. He looked away and said, My body hasn't fully recovered yet. I can't leave my side. You said that you want to repay the kindness of those years. Then, stay and take care of me for a few days. Hearing this, Wanyan Qianhua's eyes flashed slightly. A strange feeling flashed through her heart. Her gaze also fell on his face, sizing him up, trying to guess his intentions. After a while, she said indifferently, I will find time to check on your health. But I won't stay in this courtyard to take care of you. Then she walked out and said without looking back, You're the patriarch of the Xiaoyao sect. It's easy to find someone to take care of you. The elders of your sect are waiting outside. Junju Shang heard her voice disappear. He looked up and saw that she had turned around and left. He couldn't help but feel a little disappointed. He stood there in silence. He didn't know what he was feeling. On one hand, he didn't want to get close to her. He didn't want to have anything to do with her. However, when he woke up and found out that she had been feeding him and taking care of him, his heart couldn't help but tremble. The demon in his heart had become an illness because of her. If he didn't have her in his heart, he wouldn't have been tortured by the demon in his heart. However, he had never experienced. His heart was in a mess. He couldn't think clearly. He didn't know what to do. Wanyan Qianhua left. His words echoed in her ears. She couldn't help but snort coldly. What did he think she was? Do you think you can drive her away just because you want her to stay? Was she, Wanyan Qianhua, the kind of person who could be ordered to come and go as he pleased? She narrowed her eyes and pursed her lips. Her heart was burning with anger. It was good that he woke up. Looking at him, he should be able to take care of her tomorrow. She wanted to see if he could still look at her with that cold face when she forced herself on him. She had to admit that at this moment, she wanted to tear off that cold and indifferent immortal mask on his face. She wanted to see his perfect mask crack. She wanted to see if he would go crazy. Would he also lose his composure? Another day passed by like this. Until the evening of the next day, Wanyan Qianhua finished dealing with the matters at hand. When he felt that he could leave the sect after finishing his business, he took a bath and went to Junju Shang's courtyard. Since she was forcing herself on him, she naturally couldn't wait for him to fully recover. Once he recovered, it wouldn't be so easy to do things. But now, he had already woken up, and his body had gradually recovered after a few days of recuperation. At least, well, there wouldn't be the awkward situation that she was worried about. Junju Shang was lying on the bed, resting with his eyes closed. The middle-aged man beside him was standing beside the bed, asking him about his body's condition. He also asked if there was a need for an alchemist to come and take a look. He spoke for a long time, but the sect master did not respond. Thus, just as he was about to ask again, he saw the sect master open his eyes and look towards the door. "Sect master, what's wrong?" the middle-aged man asked. He also looked towards the door. Seeing that there was no one there, he said, "Young lady Wan Yan hasn't come yet." In fact, he was very doubtful. Since the sect master had woken up, would Wan Yan Qianhua still come? "You can leave," Jun Ju Shang said and slowly closed his eyes.